There's an old joke, a joke I've actually told before from the Bima, so this is going to be a test of how long the congregation's memory is. But it's a joke that I really like and I think is appropriate for the topic I want to discuss today. Emo Phillips used to tell it. I won't do his voice, but I'll try my best. Once I saw a guy on a bridge about to jump. I said to him, "Don't do it." He said, "I have nothing to live for. Nobody loves me." I said, "God loves you. Do you believe in God?" He said, "Yes." So I said to him, "Are you a Christian or a Jew?" He said, "I'm a Christian." "Me too," I said. "A Protestant or a Catholic?" He said, "A Protestant." "Me too," I said. "What type of Protestant?" "A Baptist," he said. "Me too," I said. "Northern Baptist or Southern Baptist?" "Northern Baptist," he replied. "Me too," I said. "Northern Conservative Baptist or Northern Liberal Baptist?" "Northern Conservative Baptist." "Me too," I said. So I asked him, "Northern Conservative Baptist, Great Lakes region, or Northern Conservative Baptist, Eastern region?" He said, "Northern Conservative Baptist, Great Lakes region." "Me too," I said. So I asked, "Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes Region Council of 1879 or Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes Region Council of 1912? He said, "Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes Region Council of 1912. So I said, "Die, heretic," and I pushed him off. I'm glad to see I can reuse jokes. But the point of that joke is a major problem in the world today. No matter how much we have in common, no matter how much we might agree on, we get stuck focusing on what differentiates us. We get stuck in the minutia, the details of where we don't agree, where we are different. I think that joke really describes much of a rabbi's email inbox today. I can't tell you how many times after a sermon or a class I get messages like, "Rabbi, I have to say I was a little bit surprised because I've always agreed with you. You're a big supporter of Israel. I can always count on you to say what I'm thinking, but I could not believe it the other day from the Bima when you said that some Palestinians are victims." Or, "Rabbi, I always believed we were partners. You stood up for liberal values. How could you say that there's anything good about Donald Trump? Rabbi, I thought you shared my vision for what a modern, approachable Judaism would look like. I can't believe you would say that Kaddish without a minyan isn't permitted. Rabbi, I thought we agreed about the dangers of assimilation. How can you support welcoming interfaith families to a synagogue?" The list goes on. People sending messages because we agree on all sorts of things, but on one issue we don't agree. And it pushes me a little bit further outside the camp. But it's not just me. This happens to all of us in our daily lives. It happens in society at large. Today the world has been so polarized, so divided, that it doesn't matter what issues you agree on, what you have in common. The moment you share something that's outside of what the majority opinion is in whatever place you are in, it doesn't matter. You're not a friend. You're not someone with just a different view. Like the man in the story, in the joke. You're a heretic. So in our parsha today, there are two very famous stories. I want to focus on the second one because it doesn't get quite as much attention. We'll call it the minority story, right? We're talking about the minority opinion, the minority story in Parshat Noach, the story of the Tower of Babel. And it's fair that it gets less attention. It's only 10 verses long. So I want to ask the question of what is the sin? What is the mistake? What is what they are doing that is wrong in the story of the Tower of Babel? The Torah itself isn't very clear. Hava nivneh lanu ir. Come, let us build a city. Umigdal v'rosho b'shamayim, and its tower will be up in the heavens. V'naseh lanu shem pen nafutz al panei kol haaretz, and we will make for ourselves a name lest we be spread out amongst the world. Is building a tall tower such a crime? Is wanting to make a name for yourself, wanting to stay united together, is that a crime? We can look deeper at the story. God sees the tower, and what does God say? If as one people with one language for all, this is how they've begun to act, then nothing they may propose to do will be out of their reach. If they work together like this, they can accomplish anything they want. Again, why is that a bad thing? Why is a group of people working together towards a common goal? Where is the sin? The rabbis, in fact, struggle to figure out what the sin is. Different rabbis in different times and different sources and different places suggest a varying list of sins that the people may have committed. Perhaps it was that the tower itself was meant for idolatry. Another suggests that it was meant to limit God's power. The tower was meant to pierce the heavens, to drain them of their water, so God could never again bring a flood on the earth. Another midrash teaches it has nothing to do with the tower being built and God, but about each other. That as they built it, they were so focused on the tower, they neglected each other and didn't care when somebody died in the process of building it. There's all sorts of different opinions. But the answer I want to share this morning is the answer of Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, or the Netziv as he was known. He lived in the 19th century. He was born in Russia. He died in Poland. And he was dean of one of the most prestigious yeshivot of his time. And he explains the answer is actually in the very first verse of the story. He says, Vayu kol haaretz safa echat udvarim achadim. Everyone on earth had the same language and the same words. But the words themselves, he says, aren't explained in the text because they're irrelevant, he tells us. It wasn't about the content of their words, but it was that they were devarim achadim. They were the same words. There was one opinion, one accepted consensus, one way of thinking, and that was all that was allowed. The Netziv writes that the Holy One didn't care what those words were. That wasn't the sin. It was that all of them had the same thought. And he goes on to explain that that's why God scattered them around as punishment. He writes, the opinions of people that weren't identical were not just ignored, they were judged. Anyone who didn't conform, anyone who broke from the uniformity was killed. And that is why God changed their language and spread them around. So the question then is, not what I asked before, what is so bad about unity? Because that's the wrong question. The Netziv tells us it's not about unity, it's about uniformity. The story is a reminder that to be united, you don't have to be uniform. You don't have to share the same views on everything to be working towards a common goal. And it's something that bothers me, I'll say, in the modern world, especially where I come from in the US, where it's become so polarized. Even places of worship, synagogues, have not become a place where people gather because of shared interest in Judaism, but you pick your synagogue because of a shared interest in politics. A synagogue becomes a place not for debate, not for discussion of different ideas, but for one view to be explained, one view to be expressed, and anyone who says otherwise is shunned. And that's dangerous. There are opinions we might disagree with. There are plenty of opinions I disagree with. But how do we decide when an idea is too far to be expressed? It's not the ideas that everybody agrees on that need protecting. It's the lone opinion, the one that's out of the mainstream, the one that everybody else perhaps in the world thinks otherwise, and one person thinks this way. It's their opinion that needs protection. How often in history was it that one voice? The one voice who stood up with a forbidden opinion that was outside the bounds of mainstream belief, that the world was changed forever for the better. There was a time when it was a crime to say the earth orbited the sun and not the other way around. There was a time where it was a crime to teach about evolution. How much further may we have come in the fields of science if the unpopular opinion was not just permitted but protected? There was a time when it would have been a crime disturbing the peace to distribute pamphlets saying a woman has the right to vote, or a black person is not an object to be sold or traded, or that governments make mistakes, that governments sometimes do things that are wrong. How much further might we be in the fight for social justice if the unpopular opinion was permitted and protected? Even much of what we do here at Beth Tikvah, much of what's come to define our community in previous centuries, simply for having a synagogue with mixed seating, we all would have been excommunicated. But that kind of thinking isn't authentic Judaism. Authentic Judaism, the answer to debate and disagreement, isn't to shut one voice out, isn't to leave a voice out of the conversation, to ignore them, to forbid them, to pretend like they don't exist. The authentic Jewish response is to have a conversation, a dialogue. It's what the Talmud is, and it's what I think a synagogue should be. A place where you hear things that you don't necessarily always agree with. A place where other views are heard. And the truth is, in the end, we're made stronger because of it. In rabbinical school, I would often read different books during my breaks, and it was Los Angeles, so you could sit out in the garden on a nice sunny day, not just in November, but in January, February. And my classmates sometimes would see the books I was reading. One of the best books I read in rabbinical school, one of my favorites, was by Christopher Hitchens, the late author. And it's titled, "God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything." And my classmates, even some of my teachers, would ask me questions. Why are you reading that? What could you possibly learn from that? Or to me, the scariest question, what if it changes your mind about something? Right? What if you become an atheist because of reading that book? Well, if I become an atheist from one book, then I'm in the wrong business, and it might be good for me to learn now rather than in 30 years of a career as a rabbi. But the truth is, reading the other side helped me to better understand my own beliefs, my own way of thinking, how I approached religion. And in fact, it's the Maharal of Prague, another great rabbi, who said, to deprive opponents of religion, of freedom, deprive opponents of religion, the free speech and opinion, would undermine religion and weaken it. Our views are made stronger when we're exposed to other ideas. Our own understanding is better and more complete if we sit down and listen to somebody we disagree with. And if somebody does change our mind, then why is that a bad thing? I'm certain it might surprise everybody here in our congregation, but there are occasions that Rabbi Grover and I don't agree on things. There are occasions Chazan Kavari and I don't agree on things. And at times we debate, at times we discuss, at times we argue. I may have on occasion said something in a louder tone than I probably should have to a supervisor or colleague. But I have to say, I wouldn't change it for a thing. I'm a better rabbi because of my disagreements with my colleagues. I'm a better rabbi because I've come to understand my own views better by listening to their views. By having them challenge my arguments and point out where they are weak, I've been able to strengthen them, see where I need to give it more thought, views that I might not be considering. And at times, At times, they've convinced me of their own views. And it's not a bad thing. I'm better because of it. This week, the main part of our parsha, the part I said I wasn't going to talk about, is Noach. But I'll give a quick thought on that as we wrap up. There's a famous question. It was actually my Torah portion, was also in parshat Noach. And my Devar Torah was the question of who is better, Abraham or Noah? And it's a long debated question, not just by B'nai Mitzvah students, but by even full-grown adult rabbis. And Rabbi Nathan Lopez Cardozo has a beautiful answer. What was the difference between Abraham and Noah? Right? Noach walked with God, Abraham walked before God. And what Rabbi Cardozo says is that the problem with Noah wasn't his sincerity in his religion, but that was all he saw. His ark that he built didn't have windows on the sides, it had one window in the roof, a skylight. He could look up to the heavens, and that was all he saw. His mind was focused on one thing and one thing only. It was serving God. And that's not a bad thing, except that it was to the exclusion of everyone around him. Abraham, on the other hand, engaged with other cultures, other societies, other people. Not just his family, but with the Egyptians, with other communities, with people he disagreed with, their way of life and their way of thinking, and that made his own approach stronger and better because of it. He encountered others and stood up for others, even when they didn't share the same beliefs and way of life. And that's the lesson of Parshat Noach. We are stronger when we hear things we don't agree with, because it better helps us to understand what we ourselves believe. Whether that's in the larger society on debates like abortion, euthanasia, the death penalty, universal health care, immigration, whatever the topic is, no matter how polarizing it is. What Canada did to the Indigenous people, the First Nations, what reparations might look like. No matter where your opinion falls on the spectrum, it can only be better for listening to someone who thinks differently. And as a community, we need the same. We need unity, not uniformity. So we think about what Beth Tikvah is going to look like in the future. We need a wide range of voices expressed. Is it ritual that makes us who we are? Is it the learning? Is it music? Is it a blend of all of these things? Is it engagement that matters? Is it about connecting to the past or finding a way to connect to the future? Wherever you fall on the spectrum of what a synagogue should be, by listening to someone who thinks differently, it'll only make you better understand your own views and make your own view that much better, that much stronger. And a synagogue should be a place where we can have debates and conversation on a wide range of things, not just about shul, not just about Jewish law and ethics, but about the world at large. Because what unites us should be that we're committed to a place of learning, that we're committed to Beth Tikvah, not that we're committed to a liberal agenda or a conservative one, not that we're committed to this issue or that political issue, but that we're committed to building a community together. So today it seems that it doesn't matter how much one has in common, how much unites them. It's about uniformity. And I think that today is the day that we should start to change that. And we should start to change that right here. Shabbat Shalom.